In my next two videos, I'm going to show how you can adapt the bodice front, and we'll be creating different necklines, changing the style here to either have a V-neck or a square neck opening. We'll start with the square neck as this is the easier of the two. You can see examples here of fashion garments with square neck openings. You'll end up with a pattern piece that looks something like this, with a squared neckline and the bust dart moved into the underarm position. We'll start by tracing the front block, and I'm going to pivot the bust dart here into the underarm position to move it away from the neck point here. Decide where you want your new dart to go. I'm going to put it here, and I've put a mark onto my block where I want that new dart position to be. I'm going to ignore the waist shaping here and just focus on that bust dart. I'll start from the right leg of the old dart, starting from that neck point, tracing around the neckline, and I'll come across the waist. I don't need the lower section of the block. I'll ignore the waist darts and come up the side and stop when I get to that marker here. I need to pivot this dart closed, so put your pencil into the bust point and pivot the block clockwise until the left leg meets the position that the right leg was in. So I can see the marker here where I began. And then go back to your new dart position and continue drawing in the rest of that. You'll remember from my other videos that we need to shorten the dart here. So instead of drawing this point here into my dart, I want to move that position back. So in full scale, I'd be shortening the dart by 2 centimetres, but in half scale, I'll be shortening by 1 centimetre. If it helps, you can mark the dart first and then shorten it. Taking that centre point, that centre line through the dart, and then just measuring 1 centimetre away from my point, and then redrawing the dart using that new point. I want to change the style of this neckline, and that's quite easy to do. You just decide the shape that you want it to be and then draw those lines in. I want to lower the neckline slightly and also shorten the shoulder. And I want to create a perfect square while I'm doing that, so I'm going to use the 90-degree lines on my pattern master to do that, to draw in the line that I want there. And I want to remove this section, so that's no longer going to be part of my pattern. Once you're happy with the neckline that you've drawn in, you can then trace off the pattern piece, add the pattern markings, and you're ready to create your actual garment. There's one thing to note though. For this example, we're just altering the front pattern piece, but if you were actually making a garment, then you'd need to be creating your entire pattern for the whole piece. So to include sleeves, back, and any other element that's going to be part of this design. Because we've shortened this shoulder, we need to also consider the shoulder on the back pattern piece, and we'll be shortening that by the same amount. So from the neck point here, we would want to shorten the back shoulder by whatever that distance here has been. I'm going to use baking parchment to trace off my pattern. I'm going to add 1 centimetre of seam allowance to my pattern and add on all my pattern markings. I haven't drawn in the line here where the dart's going to go, and I'll show you the technique again how to do that as I cut this out. So I'm going to cut this out around this section here and just leave this section uncut for the moment. I've cut this out so far, and before I cut the rest, I'm going to fold out the dart. To do that, I need to fold along the dart legs. And then bring them together to match. So this is how this piece would be sewn together. And then cut along the outer line, holding that dart closed and just cutting through the seam allowance at that point. So when it opens up, you can see that's the shape I need to have in the seam allowance. So it will sit flat and flush with the raw edges once the dart is sewn in place. And that's my finished pattern piece.